everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel today. We're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Round 2 of the Manufacturers Championship. As you can see there, starting in pole position, TRL Org. Going through the grid, we managed to get 4th place, highest rated BMW M6 driver in the race. And them Corvettes seem to be really nice around this track. Just behind us in 5th place, the Dodge Viper, Phantom Takey, I think the name is pronounced. And then in 6th place, you can see there, Mile 1985. And working our way down in 7th place, our rival from Suzuka that we have a lot of great races with in the Aston Martin there in 7th place. We actually managed to get a reasonably nice lap in qualifying. Wasn't the best, we could have gone about 4 or 5 attempts quicker, which would have probably put us around 2nd or 3rd, but I had to back out through the really fast chicane midway around the lap. I had to lift and I had to give it quite a big lift that lost me at least 2 attempts, and then we made a few errors elsewhere on the lap, but it wasn't a bad lap. We definitely improved our lap from the Bathurst because I knew it was going to be this way, so we managed to get a bit better lap, putting ourselves in 4th. I was really reasonably happy with in this top split FIA round 2 race. As you can see there, I think the next closest M6 was in 8th place, so we had definitely done a good job with that qualifying. A lot of variety in the field. You can see there Dodge Vipers, M6s, you've got Subarus in there, Corvettes in there, Aston Martin in there, so it's good to see that the BOP is definitely improving on this game. It is nice to see, I have to say that, and I'm looking forward to trying out different cars as we progress through different seasons of this FIA Championship. So working our way down to the last place, and in 20th place there, you see in 19th we've got a Subaru, and in 20th place we have another Corvette, Cuberton from the United Kingdom. So starting from 4th place, what can we expect? We put the brake balance on -3. This was my first ever race in this car, I have to get that out there. We did 1 hot lap in this car back a long time ago at Alscas Village, and I even said on that video then I wasn't that keen on the car. I have to say I did start getting used to the car, but I just had this really random amount of torque power that kicked in, and it was taking me a while to get used to it. But I think we handled this car reasonably well considering the limited time with this car, and I think the more I drive this I'm going to get more used to it and probably become a lot more competitive. But starting from 4th place, really happy with that, considering the amount of time that we've driven this car. You can see this is one of my favourite tracks. It probably did help in terms of our performance. It is a stronger track for me. I do like the Nurburgring. Obviously the track limits, I did try my best to keep it as close within the limits as I could. There are occasions when we do run wide. You see I wasn't running as wide as we have done in the past, just trying to keep it at least on the green part and also on the exit here. Was trying not to run as far wide as possible. You can see a lot of drivers are running really wide. We had a massive moment there again, that torque kicking in 3rd gear. It was a gear that I really am struggling with, as 5th place makes a little look down that inside, but I don't feel like I need to cover that. He's obviously in the Dodge Viper, a very fast car in a straight line, but I didn't feel I needed to cover that, so I just kept my line, concentrated on the track ahead of me, trying to get back into trying to get into the slipstream more closer to the guy in 3rd place in that Corvette. It does look like the Corvette is very strong this track, and I think it's very good at fuel saving compared to the other cars in the race. I was still trying to do a bit of fuel saving. You can see me changing gear reasonably early sometimes. Sometimes I'm pushing the gears just to try and stay with these guys. The M6 is better revving it a little bit, I find, for speed, but you can short shift it as well, and I should have done a little bit more short shift than what I did. But after Bathurst I wanted to just go a bit more aggressive and try and see if we could get a result driving a little bit more aggressive. So you can see there, getting really close to the guy in 3rd place, Oscaro Stefanzi, I think it is, I think that's in France. And then we got, I think that's Kia Ceed in 2nd place, and then TRL, obviously Org in 1st place there, doing Kia Cord, sorry, in Kia Ceed, yeah, it is Kia Ceed GT STR, that's 2nd place, and then TRL Org in 1st place. TRL Org, I've raced him before on this track. He is an absolute monster on this track. He just gets in a rhythm, he flings the car around, and in that Corvette I think he was just in a league of his own. Although it was a good battle between the guys ahead, and this is a reasonably good race. You can see we're getting pushed really hard by that Dodge Viper behind us, and then we've managed to build up, the top 5 have actually managed to build up a little bit of gap between 6th, 7th and 8th. We had a little bit of a pace advantage, as you can see. You can see behind us there's a little bit of a gap building, so we were doing okay in terms of lap time. You see I get a little bit of moment again in that 3rd gear. I was always getting that moment. I tried to obviously keep it in the limits. We ran a little bit out, but nowhere near as much as what we have done in the past. I was trying to keep this clean. You can see even on the exit there, I was trying my hardest to be a bit more respectful for the track limits. I know some of you guys obviously are quite critical of that, but you've got to remember in these top split races that people are doing it, and you're going to find that you kind of need to run them a bit wide just to make sure that you're keeping up. But I feel like I was being respectful enough considering how far you can actually run wide on them corners. And then going down to the tight hairpin, you can see they're starting to pull away from me a little bit here, and I've got this Dodge Viper that was really putting some pressure on me. I've never driven that Dodge Viper GT3. It'd be interesting to try that out at some point, but not too sure I'll do that for the next season. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do for the next season, whether to stay with a car I know or go a type of car I know or try something different. I'm still deciding on that. As we go through the corners, you can see third place looking to make a move on second place there on Kia Ceed GTR. He had a little look and he thought better of that. That would have been a very risky overtake going into that corner, and we obviously got the penalty from the lap before. If you would have seen when we went over the chicane on lap 1, we really did dive over the chicane, and it was my own fault. I just went in too deep and got the penalty, so I decided not to take that. Obviously everyone remember that, do not take your penalties, just let them just add up at the end of the race, because if I lift I end up losing probably 2, 3, 4 places and getting stuck behind people. It's just best just to let it take it off at the end of the race. That's how I've worked out. Or you sometimes find that it will disappear in the race anyway as you go on, obviously depending on how your race goes. Lap 1, not the best lap of 57.2. we should have really been a bit faster than that. In practice sessions before, I was getting into the 56s at the start, but obviously with the pressure of the guy behind me, keeping an eye on where he's going and trying to look in mirror. Luckily I could see him in that left, if you have a little look, I can see him on the left mirror and the top right, and just about see him in this in-car view. I do wish there was an option to put the, as you do on the, if you're racing from the floor view, from the bumper view, you have an option for the rear view mirror to go on there. I wish there was an option for this view to have that as well, because I feel it definitely help out a lot. As you can see, he's going to have another look into that corner, but again, I don't feel I need to go defensive. This M6 has got reasonable speed in the straight line, so I don't need to go defensive. I can just take my normal line and get our way through that corner. And we're actually still managing to hold on to these guys up ahead while we defended. You can see that Org has got himself at a reasonably big lead already. He really does know how to drive this track. He is pretty much one of the fastest I've seen at this track whenever I've come up against him. Very good driver, and you can see second and third having a really good battle here between yourselves. It's good to see that there's 3 different types of cars here in the top 5 battling away. It's quite nice to see a bit of difference, and obviously I actually really did enjoy it. Although this car doesn't really suit me yet, I am starting to enjoy the car a bit more. I just need to get my head round third gears. It really does get a little bit tricky sometimes. You can see there again a little moment on that right hand corner. I was getting a few moments on that in third gear where I'm really trying to push the power in third gear, but we managed to get into the slipstream. We're going to have a little look down the right hand side because he's going to cover that left hand side. I brake quite late, a little bit too late, and we end up giving him plenty of space, and I actually give him a little bit too much space and actually lost out on the exit a bit there as the guy behind us nearly ran into the back of us slightly. But all's good. Everyone keeps their places, and no harm done, no penalties, some respectful driving again. I gave him space, he gave me space, and it's good to see. That's why I do like these FIA races in the top split. You do find the top runners are really clean, and it's some really good races. I feel I have to go a little bit defensive going into this corner in case he lunges one up the inside. We brake nice and early, getting ourselves into first gear just so we can take a tight line, then it upshifting into second gear really early, and we've got that corner covered again. You can see there in the top right hand corner he's getting really close to us. Again, we're not running too far wide there. You can see everyone being reasonably respectful. Everyone's using the green bit of Astro, so you know, people are using that, but they're not taking liberties too far wide. And again, on that corner you can see I'm running nowhere near as wide as other people on that corner. I'm being very respectful on that corner as well. You can obviously run that corner a lot wider, but going into this corner I was having trouble getting that front end into this corner. I think I should have maybe moved that brake balance to -2. It probably would have given me a little bit more rotation in the braking zones, but I just found it a little bit more stable overall in -3, so maybe I should start playing with the brake balance as I'm driving. As we go into the tight hairpin again, managing to stay with these guys, but obviously I had a feeling they were fuel saving, as that Corvette is a very good fuel saving car in the GT3, in the GR4 class of car. It is able to save its fuel. I probably could have done a bit more saving in this BMW, but with the pressure I was getting from the guy behind, I felt I needed to push up and try and stay in the slipstream with them Corvettes. As we go through this real tricky section, this is a section that it was causing me trouble in third gear. Every time I wanted to put the power down in third gear it just wanted to spin out again. You can see there we managed to do it much better that time, getting on the power reasonably early, and you can see we've managed to pull away from the guy. But well, he's starting to get the slipstream, so he is gaining a bit again, but we've managed to give ourselves enough cushion. This was the thing, I was actually managing to defend this position fairly safely, as some of the other guys are catching up a bit there now in 6th and 7th, as maybe they're using a bit more fuel, pushing their way to the rev limit a bit more than those guys at the front. You'll see that I could have actually pushed my the revs a lot higher. I was actually changing just before the end of this in the blue there, but you can actually rev it all the way to the white line that's further up if I really wanted to, and pushing it more, but I didn't want to just take too much fuel out of the car. I wanted to try and save a little bit of fuel, as when you start revving to the limiter, that's when you really do start using a lot of fuel in these cars. They start chewing it away, and you do have consequences then when you get to the pit stops. So just bear that in mind, everyone. You do need to try and be a bit more cautious on the throttle, on the accelerator when you're hitting them rev limiters and stuff. I should have probably been a little bit more cautious in this race, but after Bathurst I wanted to go a little bit more aggressive, like I said before. So we ran a little bit further wide down that corner this time, and the guy behind ran even further wide. He had a little moment on the dust as he came back on the track, and that gave us a little bit more of a cushion then going through these corners now. And again, I felt like I was managing to hold this position, although he may have been doing a bit of fuel saving. I'm not too sure how or what he does, but I think this is the lap where I wasn't sure whether I was going to pit or not. It was going to be, I was up in the air. Do I pit this lap and then run a longer stint on the tyres, or do I go to lap 6 and pit at the end of lap 6? It was real difficult, because although I could see these guys up ahead were probably saving fuel, as I know that Corvette is able to save the fuel, I wasn't sure how much they were going to be saving, because they seem to be having reasonably good speed. We've raced Kia Ceed GT before in other classes of car, and we've been reasonably close like in terms of how fast we are. But I do think the Corvette is a fairly similar car to the M4 in the GR4 class, where you're able to maintain your speed while saving fuel. So I really wasn't sure when they were going to pit, so I decided this lap I was going to just stay out and go for having a bit of a better car at the end of the race with more grip. As you can see there, the guy behind us has actually gone in the pits. You're going to see now he's gone into the pit lane. You're going to see it pop up there. He's into the pit lane, and he's going to change his tyres and obviously put some fresh fuel in there and get himself to the end of the race with that fuel. I wasn't sure if he was going to try and do the undercut. This was the thing now. I needed to try and get a clean lap in on this lap, as he was probably going to try and get the undercut on us, because he might have been saving a bit of fuel. So I had to try and drive quite aggressively on this lap and keep it clean as well. Obviously, as you can see there, again using some of that outside bit, but we're not taking the mick of it. We're being reasonably respectful through these corners. As again, you can see there, not running too far wide, trying to keep it in the limits. And I think we're doing an okay job, as we've got a gap behind us to nearly 2 seconds to the guy behind us. So we've got a reasonable covering gap to that guy there. It's 1.7, 1.8 seconds to the guy in 5th place. Now, as you can see, the guys ahead of me, they're managing to pull away slightly. They've got a 1.4 second lead in front. We can just about see TRL Log there going through the tight hairpin. So we're not too far behind him after 6 laps. We have dropped back, I think it's 5-second gap. So we're losing about 8 tenths, something like that, a lap to him. It is quite a bit, but I think the car was probably worth a little bit of that. I think probably 3 tenths of that was the car. I have driven that Corvette. It is quite a nice car to drive through the corners, so possibly that's where they were going. I just find this M6, although it is a nice car and it is competitive, I just think the weight of it and how big it feels, definitely that's something I've got to get used to. In general, if you look at in the past, whenever I've done league racing, I do tend to go for cars that handle better over straight line speed. It's one thing I did on Project Cars too. Project Cars, the original with the Z4, and obviously the Porsche as well, the RUF that I picked when I won my elite season in the Apex League. But for this, obviously this race is, you pick a manufacturer and you're stuck with that car. So we're going to go in the pits on this lap, and let's see what we can do in the pits. We're going to try and take a nice entry, not making any risks. I didn't want to obviously put the power down too early there, put the hard tyre on, and we're going to fuel up, and we're going to try and get it. In general, I find that you don't need to go all the way to that diamond. Normally I cut that like 0.2 short. Let's see how we do it this time, as we're going in the pits and the pit crew are about to replace the tyres. So on with the tyres, and let's see the fuel going in now as we're going up, and we're going up, and we're going to put 4.8, I think we put in there, 4.8, and it actually just clicked onto the 5 near enough. Maybe we could have cut that a little bit shorter as we're going down the straight, and he's undercut me there. You can see he's managing to undercut me in the pits, and he's got past me. A little bit frustrated I was, but not much I could do about that really. Maybe I should have fuel saved a bit more in the early phase, because I had him covered. I felt like the M6 had enough speed down the straight to really cover him, as we both run a little bit wide there. Obviously the fresh tyres, I was a little bit cautious. Sometimes I find that when you put them fresh tyres on there, I don't know if they're a bit colder or not, but do seem to be a little bit twitchy on the exits of corners. But getting through the corners okay, and now we can start seeing if we can make any sort of impact on the guy in front. Although I think he had a bit of a pace advantage over us, if I'm brutally honest. I'm not too sure. It would have been a close one, because I'm not too sure. It's interesting to see. Let's just have a look how this race pans out and see. Let's have a look at the times now. 1.5 seconds, and let's see what he is by the end of this point on the next lap. I don't know if this lap was a particularly clean lap. Let's have a little look as we go through it. So we get a reasonable exit from there. This corner was a real tricky one in this M6. I found that taking an early line, I could do it. I actually did it reasonably well that time, but sometimes I'd take an early line and the rear would kick out a bit, or if I didn't take the early line, it just understeered. So it really was a little bit tricky. As we're staying around 1.4 to 1.3 seconds, actually we got it down to them, but we didn't get the best exit from that corner. And this corner again, felt like I was losing a bit of time on that exit there, because I was so nervous about putting the power down in third gear. It's something that I really do need to work on with this car. I think it's the third gear, the slip in the third gear, the way when you put the accelerator down, the slip angle, and how sensitive that accelerator is. But I'm sure we'll get there the more we drive this car. As you can see now, TRL Org from the lead goes in the pits on the end of lap 7. So he wasn't really saving fuel. He obviously probably saved a little bit more than us, but we could have gone a little bit further when we pitted. So interesting to see that we had reasonable pace. Obviously not as fast as TRL Org, but we had okay pace as we go through to start lap 8. And we're 1.6, 1.7. We've actually got a little bit more now. We've lost about 3-4 tenths from the guy in front from the last lap when we're going. He's actually gone over 2 seconds, as you can see there. These corners is probably where I was losing most time with this car. The lower gear corners where I was scared to put the power down. Through the really fast corners, it seemed to be okay. It was able to carry speed, although it still was a little bit nervous. As again, we're not pushing them limits. You can see I'm trying to keep respect for the limits, and maybe that was costing me a bit of time, but I know you guys do prefer if we keep it in the limits. So going through to this right-hander now, down into second gear. Trying to get a nice clean exit. You can see we've actually pulled quite a big gap to the guy who was only a second and a half behind us. He's now nearly 6.5 seconds behind us, and it's actually increasing that gap. It's going up to 6.5. So we're doing a good job in terms of keeping the guy behind us. So we've still got someone who was behind us who hasn't pitted yet. I think it was the guy in third place there. I think he hasn't pitted yet. Yeah, it's that guy. He's now in fourth. TRL has passed him. He hasn't pitted yet, so he's going for the fuel saving, staying out on them tyres and seeing if he can make it to the end by the looks of it. As you can see now, going through this corner, going into this real tricky corner, I really was having trouble with putting the power down, and the rear steps out. I try and save it, and as I actually saved it, the rear left got on the gravel, and we've made a huge mistake. I can't believe it did that. I can't explain how frustrated I was with myself as we rejoin the track and we get overtaken by 2 guys. So we lost quite a big chunk of time in that. We were 7 seconds ahead, and they're now up the road well ahead. As you can see now, going through the corner, you can see what happened in third gear. Just putting the power down, trying to get a good clean exit, and the rear just goes. And then as I saved it, the rear left just got on the gravel and then just lost me. I tried to save it a number of times. Luckily we kept it pointing kind of in the right direction, but we lost so much time in that. Real disappointed. So let's just have a look from the rear of the car as we went through that corner. Let's try and see how that happened. So you can see now we're going into the right hand corner. We take a nice line. We had a really good line for the corner. Then I just put the pattern, it just snapped on me suddenly. This is what I need to get used to with this car, the way that third gear kicks in. And it was my fault, 100% my fault, but it is a tricky car to get right in that third gear, especially coming out that corner, and the other 2 cars go straight past me and they're well ahead. So we lost quite a big chunk of time. If you have a look now, we were 7 seconds ahead of the guy that is in now 6th, and we're over 3. We've lost about 11 seconds at least in that incident. I would have expected to hit a 1:56 in this lap, obviously with the fresh tyres on. Let's just see what the lap comes up as we go over the line and see how much time we've actually lost out, so we can see at the end of the race about what time we've lost out overall. Luckily we managed to hold on to 8th just about, so 2 minutes 7. We've lost about 11, actually nearly 12 seconds of time there, so really frustrating. And it's going to be interesting to see what time the guy who was ahead of us finishes, because I have a feeling he may have just short pitted for the fuel to get the undercut, so we may have been a little bit more competitive at the end and been able to catch him up. We'll have to have a look now as we carry on through the race, and I have to tell you, I started to get a little bit frustrated. I was getting a little bit aggressive because I was so annoyed at the mistake I made. Over 3 seconds behind the guy now who's in front of us, who we had a 7-second lead over 6th, so we had 5th place. I think we had 6th place 100% covered. The guy who wasn't pitted, we'll get to that at the end of the race and see whether we would have been able to get past him or not. But it was looking good for a top 5, and it's a big shame that I made that mistake. And I can't explain how annoyed I was at myself. It was such a stupid mistake to make, but luckily we didn't lose in 8th place. I mean, did get close to losing 8th, but we just about managed to hold on to that. And then we're just starting to pull away a bit from this guy now. He did have a few little looks into some of the corners, but obviously me driving a little bit aggressive now, trying to I think I was losing a bit of speed because I was really aggressive and a bit frustrated, and then again I was cautious through this corner now because of what happened. So it was hard to explain, because this time we're in 3rd gear, we're putting the power down very similar but a little bit more cautious. You can see there I was a little bit wary of what we did, and we've actually gone through our fastest time through that split here and driving a little bit cautious through there. And we've actually pulled the 2nd lead over the guy behind us now, so I was fairly confident at this stage we would be able to hold off the guy in 9th, but I didn't think I'd be able to catch the drivers ahead. They were 3.5, 3.7 seconds ahead. I've gained a little bit on 7th, about 3 tenths, something like that, 3 tenths over him. Yeah, 3.4, so 3 tenths when we get over the line. So we go over the line on a 1 minute 56.9, which is an okay lap. It wasn't anything special. We should have really at this stage been hitting low 56s, but that spin, although it only takes a little bit of tyre wear out, it just seemed to just break the rhythm I was in, and it really did frustrate me that I did that. But like I say, people make mistakes, I make mistakes, and I'll try my best to not make mistakes again. But you know, I could have just not uploaded this race, but obviously I want to make you guys, you know, if you make a mistake, you make a mistake, and you guys need to see that. Everyone needs to see it. As we nearly made another error then going through that tight right-hander in 2nd gear. That was another corner that if I put the power down a little bit early, the tyres just didn't want to live with it. But we're just going to, at this stage now, just try and maintain 8th position and see if we can just get to the end of the race and just consolidate in 8th position. It would have been so much better to get higher up the grid, but silly mistakes like that you can't really do anything about now. So let's just concentrate on the race. As at 9th place now, he's still within a 2nd of us. He's obviously still got that slipstream where he's gaining back on us, but I felt like I had him covered. I didn't really feel like he was going to be able to make a move on us. We seem to have him covered through the fast corners there as well. I think he was having to give a little bit of a lift through them corners. As we go into the corner again that we had the error from, let's see how we do it this time. Going out wide into 4th gear, then back down to 3rd gear, and then slowly putting the power back through. So that time much better again, and you can see we're 4 tenths down on our previous lappers. Again, I think obviously the tyres are starting to kick in a bit now, and with the extra wear from the spin, but overall not the best lap overall so far. Still frustrated obviously at this point. Not much I can do about it now. I've just got to hope that we can get some better results in other races to try and get in this top 24 stars race. It's going to be a tough one, I think, now with this mistake in this race. It could have cost us a place in it, but we'll see how that pans out through the week, and we will get in that top 24 eventually, but we'll see. It's very early on. This could be a race that we don't even need, but this would have been my stronger race. This was a race that I would have been getting a strong result at because it's a stronger track for myself. But it's frustrating because I know in the Porsche 911, in a race like this with 11 laps or 10 laps of 10 laps with the fuel and the tyre wear on, I'm hitting low 56s fairly constantly. I actually get in the 55s and the 55 6s and 7s, so I do know that I've got more speed in that car. But like I say, I'm sure I can get this car fairly close. It's just a totally different car to drive than the Porsche, and this is why I am regretting not trying other cars out a bit now. But I've got to start doing it now in these FIA races, and this is where we're going to have to start practicing with other cars, so that obviously if the BOP changes and stuff, we're used to other cars. As you can see there, we've actually caught up a bit again on 7th place. We've gained another 4 tenths over him from that, so we've nearly gained a second on him from the incident we had. We're actually getting under the 3-second mark now, so we clearly had the speed over them guys, so I don't think there would have been any chance of them getting past us 6th and 7th. We had a massive gap over them when we made the mistake. It was nearly 7 seconds, so real shame that we made that error. But going through this corner for the final time now, just trying to keep it calm, keep it on the track. Going through the right-hander again, down into 3rd gear, again keeping it smooth. You can see how late I'm putting the throttle on now because of that little incident. We were on the throttle so much earlier than that before, but it really did scare me out of putting the throttle down. But we're still gaining time on these guys' head, but there's not enough laps left for me to really get anywhere near them. Would have probably needed another 3 or 4 laps to get anywhere near the slipstream. As we go through the chicane for the last time, really, I attacked that quite aggressively actually. Just got away probably without getting a corner cut. As we get the gap down to 2 seconds, 2.3 seconds. As I'm not sure if they were having to watch the fuel. We were okay for fuel, still 0.2 laps of fuel left, so we were okay to go over the line with full throttle. And let's have a little look there. Org in the lead. We were 18 seconds behind in the end. Obviously, I'm sorry, no, 22 seconds behind, and the guy who was ahead of me actually 10 seconds behind. So we were 12 seconds behind the guy ahead of me, and we lost about 12 seconds in that instant. So I think if we didn't make that instant, it would have been a really close battle at the end. And this is why I think we would have got 5th place, because this guy ran out of fuel or had penalties, and look how much he had to lift at the end there before he went over the line. So I think 5th place would have been ours for the taking fairly easily. Just a real frustrating mistake we made. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed the race. You can see there we're now in 13th place on the world rankings. Obviously some people haven't done a second race. That will obviously all change up after the end of the thing. We'll see if we can maintain our position in the top 24 stars. Anyway guys, make sure you sub the channel if you haven't already subbed it, and click that notification button. And if you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and we're going to be back with more GT Sport, Project Cars 2 and Assetto Corsa. Thanks again for watching everyone.